This situation is not over. It has not yet been concluded, and we need to remain vigilant because, as I said, number one priority is locating Myles Sanderson.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Tuesday, September 6th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. More terrifying moments for the people of James Smith Cree Nation today. They went into lockdown after the possible sighting of a wanted man, Myles Sanderson. This not far from where horrific murders happened on Sunday. Tonight, we bring you extensive coverage of Sanderson's violent history, the victims, and the manhunt. Our reporter Adam Hunter is following the story. Adam, what can you tell us about what happened today?
Well, just before noon today, Sam, the RCMP sent out an emergency alert saying there was a possible sighting of Myles Sanderson on James Smith Cree Nation. This has traumatized people in the area who tell CBC they were scared and fearful and on edge after this weekend's killings. They were told to secure themselves, shelter in place, and wait for another update. Police descended on the area. And about 3 hours later, another alert was sent. The RCMP saying they had not found Myles Sanderson. His whereabouts right now are unknown, and the manhunt continues. The communities of James Smith Cree Nation and nearby Weldon are dealing with the aftermath of a mass stabbing that has left 10 dead and 18 more injured. On Monday, the body of 31-year-old Damian Sanderson was found on James Smith Cree Nation. Police say his injuries do not appear self-inflicted. He is the 11th person to die. He had been named as a suspect. His brother Myles is facing 3 counts of first-degree murder, attempted murder, and break-and-enter. The names of some of those killed are slowly starting to emerge as families share details. One of the victims is Lana Head, a 49-year-old mother of 5. Earl Burns Sr., a veteran, is also among the dead. Gloria Burns, a 62-year-old frontline worker, was also killed. Her family says she was working at the James Smith Cree Nation Health Clinic when a crisis call came in. She died responding to the call.
She raised 4 of her nephews. Their mother passed away when they were very young. And she took them as her own children. And she raised them the best she could. And that's the kind of person she was. And for her to go into a situation like this where she helping people, even though it costed her life, that's what she was. That's who she was.
Another victim, 77-year-old widower Wes Peterson of Weldon. His neighbor says she collapsed when she heard the news.
Takes care of everyone here. He helped. If someone needed a hand, he helped. He was a kind-hearted man.
Today in Vancouver, the Prime Minister was asked about the situation.
I spoke with chiefs a couple of days ago. I spoke with, yesterday, I spoke with the Premier. We're going to continue to be there while people grieve, while people heal.
And Sam, the SHA providing an update on some of those people that were injured this weekend. 3 are in critical condition, 7 in stable condition in a hospital. 7 people have been discharged from care.
Adam, what is the RCMP saying today about their continued search for Myles Sanderson?
We spoke to the Saskatchewan Assistant Commissioner this afternoon, who says people need to remain vigilant as police have not located the black SUV, the Nissan Rogue, they believe Myles Sanderson to have been in this weekend.
At this point in time, we have not located the black SUV, so we have no reason to believe that it hasn't been located. We can't eliminate it at this point in time. So we are asking people to still be aware of that. Could he have hidden that vehicle somewhere and not be using it? Absolutely, it's a possibility. But we're following up on all of those investigative avenues as quickly as possible. But certainly right now we are asking people to remain vigilant, watch for that vehicle, and if they have any information that they believe they have seen that vehicle or Myles Sanderson, to contact police.
Blackmore says even though they haven't found Sanderson, the investigation is progressing as they're able to eliminate some locations that he may be, including James Smith Cree Nation. She says the tip this weekend that his vehicle was in Regina is credible. She says that information is now stale. Sam?
Thanks, Adam. The CBC's Adam Hunter reporting live in Regina tonight. We're learning more tonight about Myles Sanderson, and it comes from background in the Parole Board of Canada documents. Sanderson had recently served time in a federal penitentiary for assault, robbery, and uttering threats. As Dan Zakreski reports, the documents reveal a man with a history of drugs and violence.
This Parole Board of Canada report on Myles Sanderson runs 10 pages. It's on page 6 when it speaks to the issues that drive his violent behavior. It says he has a history of drug and alcohol use and began drinking alcohol and smoking marijuana around age 12 to cope with problems. It goes on to say, you started to use cocaine at around age 14 and said that your regular use of cocaine, marijuana, and hard alcohol would make you lose your mind and that you can be easily angered when drunk but are a different person when sober. The report says that Sanderson racked up 59 convictions as an adult. Half of those were for violent offenses. Now they include, in July 2017, he terrorized an ex-girlfriend and her children, throwing a cement block through a car window. In early 2018, he attacked people in a house who were drinking, stabbing people inside with a fork and then going outside and kicking a man unconscious. In June 2018, he attacked a police officer while being arrested. These violent attacks led to Sanderson getting sentenced to 4 years in prison. He served 2/3 of his sentence and received a statutory release last summer. That meant Sanderson would serve the rest of his prison sentence in the community under supervision. Now, this professor from the University of Regina says statutory release usually makes sense.
I don't want to have a broad stroke assumption to say that statutory release is a fool's errand or failed from the beginning. Those who are making efforts to be remorseful and to change their ways in prison should be given the possibility and the opportunities to do so.
But Sanderson was arrested last fall for breaking conditions and then released again in February. Now, he was supposed to be meeting with a case officer in the community after that release. But this past May on the long weekend, he went missing. Criminal experts tell us that this is not unusual. Police across the province have been searching for Myles Sanderson ever since. Dan Zakreski, CBC News, Saskatoon.
A lot has happened since this all began early Sunday morning. Here's what we know about the timeline of the rampage and the police investigation thus far. The horror began Sunday before dawn. The first 911 call about a stabbing at James Smith Cree Nation came in at 5:40 a.m. And then more calls from multiple locations. Just after 7 a.m., a dangerous persons alert is sent out to the First Nation and surrounding communities, telling people about multiple stabbings, 2 suspects at large, and a warning to shelter in place. Then, just before 8 a.m., Damian Sanderson and Myles Sanderson, later confirmed to be brothers, are identified as suspects. Names and photos are shared with the same community. 23 minutes later, the alert is expanded to all of Saskatchewan. That's when police share the men are believed to be traveling in a black Nissan Rogue. At 9:45 a.m., a 4th alert is sent to the entire province. In that alert, it's revealed that people had been stabbed on the First Nation and also nearby in the village of Weldon. The Saskatchewan Health Authority issues a code orange for a mass casualty. The most seriously injured are airlifted to Saskatoon.
Multiple patients were also taken from the scene to hospitals in Prince Albert, Nipawin, and Melfort by ground ambulance.
By late morning, the dangerous persons alert is extended into Alberta and Manitoba. And around lunchtime, another public alert is issued. In it, RCMP say the suspects may have been spotted in East Regina, more than 3.5 hours away from the crime scenes. In a late Sunday afternoon press conference, the scope of the tragedy is made painfully clear. 10 people were dead. Police said 15 more people were taken to hospital with injuries, some randomly attacked, others targeted. A gruesome rampage that included 13 different crime scenes. Police agencies from across the province step up to assist with increased presence in Saskatchewan's capital. It is almost noon on Monday before RCMP provide another update. They announce Myles and Damian Sanderson are charged with several counts of murder. Warrants are issued for their arrest. The number of injured people is increased to 18. And at that point, Regina's police chief said he was still confident the brothers were in Regina.
We've, in our mind, proven that they were in town.
But then, late Monday afternoon, the scope of the investigation changes. RCMP announced Damian Sanderson was dead, his body found on James Smith Cree Nation, where the attacks began.
We can confirm he has visible injuries. These injuries are not believed to be self-inflicted at this point.
Myles Sanderson, who police say could be injured, remains at large. Police say they still believe he'd been in Regina on Sunday, just with someone else.
As far as the ongoing investigation goes, we are still operating under the impression that Myles is in the city of Regina.
At that point, a 7th dangerous persons alert is sent out to the people of Saskatchewan. As the manhunt moved into its 3rd day on Tuesday, just before noon, RCMP issue an 8th alert. Police received and are responding to a report of a possible sighting of Myles Sanderson on the James Smith Cree Nation. But as we now know, police did not find Myles Sanderson today, and that search continues. Meanwhile, with so many injured victims still in hospital and others requiring ongoing medical care, the Saskatoon Tribal Council says it's stepping up to help victims and their families who are in the city. Tribal Chief Mark Arcan says families of the victims are being put up at 3 different locations but did not disclose them. The families are being provided food and transportation to the hospital. As well, the Tribal Council has mobilized teams of caregivers that will deliver mental health support and financial aid to members of James Smith Cree Nation who are in Saskatoon.
This is an unfortunate circumstance, but at the end of the day, it's about people, first and foremost. And I'm calling on all the friends and families of the Saskatoon Tribal Council, if they can donate and support these families. Everything raised is going to go to these families, whatever they need. Food, activities for the kids, movie passes, whatever it may be, swimming. We've got one family in there that has, I think, 10 kids with them, and they're taking shifts at the hospital. The kids can't even go swimming because there's, so anything like that is going to be supportive. We got to help deal with the trauma and look for supports in regards to what's going on.
Arcan says people who want to donate money or items such as clothing, toys, and hygiene products are being asked to drop them off at White Buffalo Youth Lodge on 20th Street in Saskatoon. Premier Scott Moe says the province is also providing mental health support and victim services. He was visiting Big River First Nation today and spoke to reporters.
A couple of priorities in the here and now for us as a province. The first would be to ensure that we're providing the supports for the victims' families, and that is being provided by the province with victim services being deployed, mental health supports, partnering with PA Grand Council on providing those through the Saskatchewan Health Authority. The Provincial Command Centre has been set up to ensure that there's a free flow and immediate flow of information to all of those that are relevant. And there's going to be additional supports that are going to be required, and I had indicated that to the Prime Minister when we spoke, that we'll have to work together with the local community ensuring that those supports are being provided.
Flags in our province have been lowered in memory of the victims of the mass murder in Saskatchewan. Premier Moe says the flags will be lowered 1 day for each life lost. In Regina, flags were also at half-mast at Regina City Hall and the First Nations University of Canada. Federal buildings across the country have also lowered their flags, including the Peace Tower in Ottawa. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. We take you live now to central Saskatchewan. The CBC's Devin Haru is in Prince Albert tonight. And Devin, you've spent most of the last 2 days around James Smith Cree Nation and the village of Weldon. And today, a lot of activity in that area as the RCMP followed up on a tip about Myles Sanderson. What are you hearing from community members in and around the First Nation?
Good evening to you, Sam. Another harrowing day in northeastern Saskatchewan. A lot of emotion. People are exhausted. People remain on edge, and they are scared. Let me share a story with you from a community member, a mother who lives on the James Smith Cree Nation. I heard this story a short time ago from her. She said earlier today she was not on the First Nation. Her 2 sons were. When the first emergency alert sounded, she couldn't get a hold of her sons. She was panicked. Of course, you can imagine the level of fear in the community. That's when she phoned RCMP to say her 2 sons were on the First Nation. I can report they are safe. Her brother-in-law was there. They located them, but they aren't returning to the First Nation tonight. They are too afraid to return, and that is the sentiment that I'm hearing from residents there here tonight, is that they're either too horrified to be on the First Nation or too horrified, Sam, to leave their home, to go on the streets because of everything that unfolded here today. You can imagine this is a community on edge. Many people saying this is an unending nightmare, Sam.
Devin, people in the village of Weldon are also left traumatized and with many questions after what happened there. What have you learned about the victim in that community?
Yeah, so Sam, yesterday I spent most of the day in Weldon, a village of about 200 people. It's about 30 kilometers down the road from the James Smith Cree Nation. As I walked down the one road, Central Street, that intersects the heart of the village, people just aren't leaving their home. Many people up against the glass of their homes, the windows looking out into the street. Police were combing that community as well, and I'm learning that 77-year-old West Patterson was killed in his home in an attack on Sunday morning. And just some terrifying details we're learning from the family. His 25-year-old grandson was hiding in the basement of the home on the phone with 911 as that altercation played out upstairs. He hid down there until he heard the commotion stop, then silence. Then he came upstairs, and that's when he found the horrifying scene, found his grandfather, Wes Peterson, loved by all, a beloved man in the community. This is small town Saskatchewan, Sam. Lives changed forever, families torn apart, 2 communities, no doubt, tonight in crisis.
A hard story to cover. Thanks so much for this, Devin. The CBC's Devin Haru live from Prince Albert tonight. A second dangerous persons alert in Saskatchewan ended this morning. It was not related to the stabbings at the James Smith Cree Nation. It was in place for the Witchican Lake First Nation, about 165 kilometers northwest of Saskatoon. Spiritwood RCMP continued to investigate reports of a shooting, which happened around noon yesterday. Initial reports said several suspects may have been involved. RCMP say they have arrested 1 man, but they're still looking for 33-year-old Melvin Starblanket. RCMP are telling people in that area to remain vigilant and not to approach suspicious people. And they say the alert could be reinstated if there's a heightened risk to the public. Stay with us. We have your weather after the break.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital GMC Buick Cadillac, making back to busy easy.
And weather specialist Ethan Williams joins me now. Some very hot and dry conditions in the province over the long weekend.
Yeah, that's right, Sam. And it was very windy as well. And those conditions really making things tough for drivers on the Trans-Canada Highway. Now, this was the highway near Morse yesterday afternoon. Visibility near whiteout conditions after dust and salt from nearby Reed Lake was kicked up by the strong winds we saw. It's been very dry in that area, and this was the result of that. Now, we caught up with one motorist who drove through it.
We whoa, what is this? It looked like a big giant cloud, and we were like, okay, we're driving into this, prepared that we're not going to see anything, and we start seeing cars that have been in damaged, crashed cars on the passing lane.
And now RCMP have not responded to our request quite yet for comment, but again, sounds like some pileups there and very low visibility. Environment Canada saying that there was a cold front moving through, and that's what kicked up those winds, and gusts were between 70 and 80 kilometers an hour in that area during that time yesterday. And of course, very hot. Temperature records broken across the province all 3 days of the long weekend. Leader had the highest temperature at 38.5 degrees. Key Lake, look at the big spread between your new and old records there. By the way, that is likely the first time Key Lake has hit the 30-degree mark in the month of September, according to Environment Canada records. And it was very wide-ranging records all the way down to Coronach in the south. Saskatoon, you hit 2 records over the weekend. Your first just over 35 degrees. And Regina, for the second time in as many weeks we saw, or a second time in actually just 1 week, we saw us just eke out our record as well. Now, Saskatoon, your second record on Sunday was the hottest temperature you ever recorded in the month of September. Very hot at 35.7 degrees. September heat records also broken in places like North Battleford and Swift Current as well, and likely a few other communities too. So this heat is really quite remarkable for this time of year. And though we saw a bit of a break today, another ridge building in tomorrow. Southern Saskatchewan, another hit from this heat, especially the southeast of the province. Daytime highs close to 35. A little bit of humidity will make you feel close to 40, but that ridge, or that trough rather, going to be moving in not quite as deep as we saw it last week, but that'll bring some cool down and some moisture, and that is really needed because our fire risk, no more low risks across the province at this point. It's all moderate to extreme risks, and we have seen some air quality advisories over the weekend from some forest fire smoke. Those have ended, but that smoke from fires in Jasper, a fire out of control there now, fires in BC and the Pacific Northwest moving eastward with that westerly flow of winds, and those winds were quite gusty today, especially in far northeastern Saskatchewan, starting to die off now with that ridge of high pressure. We will see them return, especially in southwestern Saskatchewan, where our fire risk is highest as we head through the day tomorrow, and those will return again for much of the province heading in to the next couple of days. Now, in terms of rainfall, we are expecting some showers and maybe some thunderstorms in the far north tonight, but for the southern part of the province tomorrow, a very hot, dry day. Some showers possible in the Churchill region, and then as we get to Thursday, that trough moves in and we will see some showers build in, possibly to central Saskatchewan, maybe as far south as Saskatoon, but Regina and the south, it just continues to remain dry, as you'll see in our forecast here. Again, a hot day in Regina, windy conditions tomorrow. We are looking at that sharp drop off in temperatures heading into Thursday, but we start to ride a little bit of a seesaw here when it comes to temperatures. We're getting close to 30 degrees as we head into next week. Now, Saskatoon, close to 30 for you tomorrow. A quick drop off Thursday, possible showers there as well, and it looks like we will begin to see that warm up as well. But, Sam, as we start to get through the month of September, it looks like eventually we're getting to closer to normal temperatures.
I think some people are ready for a break.
Yes, that is true.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
And some quick rider news before we leave you tonight. The Saskatchewan Roughriders lost their second straight Labor Day Classic on Sunday. The Blue Bombers were able to outlast the Green and White 20-18. It was also the final game for a controversial player. Today, the Riders cut defensive tackle Garrett Marino. The second-year player was suspended for 4 games earlier this season for this hit and for uttering racial slurs to Redbacks quarterback Jeremiah Masoli. Marino had another questionable hit Sunday on Zach Caleros, and today, the Riders decided it was time to move on from Marino. And that is it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can head to cbc.ca/sask or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. The National will have more later tonight, and Glenn Reed will be back with more at 11. Thanks for watching, and have a great night.